on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Motherfucker, he's on his
Happy New Year and welcome back to Mountain Murders. I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
How are you, Dylan?
I'm doing great.
You're doing great.
Yeah, if I was doing any better, I'd be dead.
New year, new you.
Yeah.
What are your resolutions this year?
Nobody ever keeps them, so why even talk about them? Right?
Because I asked.
Okay, I'll do the cliche ones. I'm going to start going to the gym.
We know that's a lie.
It's going to be all about my temple this year.
Okay.
Yeah, my temple that is currently public housing.
I was going to say, your body's like a pop-up camper.
Yeah, it's like one of those old pop-up campers where like the vinyl's like cracking around the edges. Yeah, and it leaks here and there, but if you air it out long enough before you go camping, it doesn't make you sneeze.
There could be some small woodland creatures habitating.
There's definitely been some chipmunks around.
Yeah, okay.
Also, I'm going to be a better person, right? And let's see, what else? What's another cliche one?
Save money.
I'm going to stop murdering people.
Volunteer work.
I'm going to volunteer.
I don't know.
I'm going to be more financially...
A romantic husband. Going to buy me some flowers.
I actually am planning something very romantic.
I don't believe it.
No, it's true. No, I've actually consulted some people, and we've talked about some things, and that's for a later date. I'll tell everybody else about the surprise later.
You're taking me to like a mud bog?
How'd you know?
I just figured.
Get them jeans on, girl.
Well, top of the show, Dylan, let's give a big shout out to new patrons. We've got JB and Brian supporting the show at patreon.com/Mountain Murders Podcast. We do appreciate you folks who so generously donate and help us keep the lights on here at Mountain Murders. Also, Dylan, brand new year. We just celebrated our 3rd anniversary. So happy birthday to Mountain Murders. December 28th was actually our 3rd year podcast anniversary.
That's hard to believe.
Can you believe it's been 3 years?
No, I would have never. I would have never imagined that we would have done it this long.
Surpassed our expectations by far.
Gosh, I'm just a expert in the English language today.
I can tell. It's
I never would have done it.
Oratorical fireworks when we
Ooh,
have Dylan on the mic.
I like that.
Well, we've been out of pocket for the holiday. It's like this last week of December between Christmas and New Year's. Like, everybody seems like they're out of commission. Like, we all just give up for the week.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point, right?
Well, it's the end of the purge, and at that point, you just don't have a lot left to give.
You don't. No. It's been, I'm going to say for myself, I've kind of had a bit of a rough mental health couple of weeks. I've just been in a funk. It's probably seasonal, right? So I just needed a little bit of a break. We appreciate your patience. Hope everybody had great holidays, depending on whatever you celebrate. Maybe you don't celebrate, but I hope you've had a great couple of weeks. And heading into the new year, we're excited.
Yeah, when we
to bring you more Mountain Murders, Dylan.
Yeah, fuck yeah, dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when we have these sporadic breaks, because they're typically not planned, we do think about the listeners, and we do miss podcasting during these times. And so we're always happy to get back. And so that's where we're at now. Everything's going great. We're 3 years old.
3 years old.
And
little baby podcast.
Oh, we got it. And we're just going to keep on trucking because we love doing this.
We're just getting our legs.
Oh, it's just look
We're
at
just
it.
taking our first little steps.
I got the little helmet on.
Oh, what a cute little podcast.
Oh, it's the little podcast that could.
Well, happy birthday, Dylan.
I thank you for that. I take full credit for everything that's been accomplished here at Mountain Murders, obviously.
We know.
And I'm what you call a glory hound. I come in, I'm one of those people that comes in after all the hard work's been done and take the credit for the accomplishments.
And everyone loves you.
And I've been accused of being glory hounds before
Yeah.
on the work sites and
true.
stuff. I watch some guy struggle for 30 minutes, and then I'll go over and be like, "This is how it's done," but yet they've already powered, through whatever the problem is, and then you get that last little umph, and you make something break or crack, and you're like, "That's how it's done."
We got to have that guy around.
Got to have a glory hound.
What would
So-
we do without you?
Oh, I'm so happy to be back.
I know,
man.
right? So we wrapped up the end of the year. We had the 2-part Ray Caruth case.
Oh,
Gonna open 2022 with the dog making some noise here in the studio. Roofie, calm down. And also, we have a story out of Atlanta.
Oh, one more piece of business.
Oh.
We are going to clean up the Ray Caruth Part 2 audio. We were trying to increase our volume, and we have no idea after 3 years what we're doing still with the podcast audio. And we're going to replace that
In my
audio.
defense, we were trying to get to Michigan. I was uploading literally from the road, and we
Yes.
had some issues.
We had some issues, and a couple people reached out, so they really want to hear the episode, but it's not good. It's peaking out, and we're going to try to fix that. And we're going to try to increase our volume without having shitty audio. So let's move on.
Okay, well, thank you for the business in the front.
Yes.
Right.
Now it's time for the
Now-
party.
Okay, so we're going to travel down to Atlanta again.
Oh, man. It goes
Been
down.
spending a lot of time in Georgia lately, it seems like.
It goes down in Georgia.
Mary Wallace Shotwell was born January 14th of 1940 to Nathan and Margaret Shotwell in Charlotte, North Carolina. She grew up in a typical suburban neighborhood, quiet, peaceful. I did have difficulty finding out about her early life. Not a whole lot of information out there about her childhood, but I imagine it was quite typical of the post-war boom, enjoying the youth culture of the time.
Yeah, I'd say it was a pretty great time to be alive as a young person. You have all the economy, and the country's recovering, and everything's booming, good jobs. It's kind of there was already consumerism, but I think it really kicked into high gear during this period. Would you say so?
Definitely.
Everybody has that shiny washer dryer, the nice car, the decent, nice house. So I'd say it was a cool time to be alive, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, and as a young person, I mean, you're born in 1940, so you are part of that boomer generation. A lot of other young folks born around the same time. So you're going to have big friend group in school, a lot of young people. You've got like the birth of rock and roll happening at this time.
It's one of those times when could you imagine just what was on the radio when you got in the car and clicked it on? Some really great music back to back.
Some Chuck Berry.
Well, yes, this time stands out for me. The Motown era, obviously. Could you imagine all that just being on the radio or seeing
No.
these acts live?
All the stacks.
Yeah,
Records.
and then also I think classic rock, that era.
Well, yeah, you had that late 60s.
Late 60s, early 70s is a pretty big time in music, I think. So when I hear this good old music of different genres, I just can't imagine, because nowadays what do we get? Like we've discussed this, everything's so hollow and has no heart and soul, and it's really honestly not that good.
We get like Cake by the Ocean.
Well, hey, I mean I jam that, but yeah, it's no Chuck Berry, right? But so yeah, oftentimes I imagine how incredible it would be to be alive during some of these times of art and culture and music.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Dylan.
Does that make sense?
Mary attended Myers Park High School in Charlotte. In fall of 1958, she graduated from high school and attended UNC Greensboro, which was a women's college at the time. The school had about 2,500 enrolled students, but it was a turbulent time at the college and in the city of Greensboro. The historic Woolworth sit-ins occurred during Mary's sophomore year. The sit-ins were a series of nonviolent protests in February and July of 1960, opposing racial segregation. Mary was active in college, singing in the choir, serving as chairman of the elections board, and working in other organizations and committees on campus. Like a lot of young women in the 1960s, it was a time for transformation, and Mary studied secretarial administration. She wanted to be a professional, but there were few careers available at this time, Dylan, for women that were considered socially acceptable.
Yeah, I'm still amazed during this time period how archaic the gosh, I'm trying to sound smart. How women were still inside this box, like they're the homemakers, and they're only allowed to be a secretary or or a nurse or just these certain jobs to be socially acceptable. I mean, that's just weird to me.
Well, this chosen field, secretarial administration, was one of few majors available to women at the university level, at the college level. And it was one of few jobs available to women to be a secretary or to work in an office.
When I grow up, I'd like to be a secretary. I would like to wear makeup and be really pretty for my boss.
Like Working Girl? You want to be like Melanie Griffith in
Yeah.
Working Girl?
Yeah. But see, women are capable of so many incredible things, and I just don't know why. I mean, it seems to be more open and better nowadays, but at the same time, women are under assault everywhere you turn around. Crime against them, violence against them, literal laws, legislation against them and their bodies. So we still haven't figured it out. Yeah, that's right. I'm a feminist.
Okay, Gloria Steinem. While in school, the female students at the university faced a lot of restrictions. A strict dress code was enforced. If young women wanted to go on a date with a man, she would have to get written permission, a form that was signed by administrators.
What?
Yeah. And like in the dorm, they had like a dorm mother or a house mother. And yeah, they had to sign off permission for you to go on dates. There were curfews.
So they literally had like a house mother who chased the guys back out the window kind of thing?
Yeah.
So, it's funny, these dress codes, dudes don't ever have a dress code. It's always like towards the women. And that's still alive in our schools, which I find weird.
I don't understand why men aren't dressing sexier these days. I personally would like to see powdered wigs come back into fashion and assless chaps.
Well, that's just because you want me to be able to wear that one outfit I bought.
What about the balls out jeans?
Is that a brand? Balls out jeans?
Yeah, Dylan, you want a pair?
No, but I think you could actually make money with that.
Just air the fellas out a little bit?
I want to, everybody's lost their style nowadays. I mean, I know we have this whatever culture and but it's when we go out and we look around, me and you comment all the time to each other, like women and men, it's like you literally just left work or rolled out of bed or was asleep on the couch.
Okay, so let's pause the podcast for just a moment and let's discuss this. You're absolutely right, Dylan. When we go out, like let's say we go out to our local dive bar, and yes, it's a dive bar.
It's
but
perfect.
We go out to the local dive bar, Friday, Saturday night, whatever. 95% of the people in there have made zero effort. Like, I imagine trying to be single in this county and like try to date these men, and they look like they just rolled out of bed or they came from the job site and they're caked in red clay mud and they stank.
Yeah, and it's 9:00 at night, bro.
And they're smelly.
Like you had time
Like they did hard labor for like a week and baked in the sun without showering. And they're belly up to the bar drinking and like, hey, and they're gross, right? They got like a few cornbread crumbs in their beard.
They stink.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
What happened to the days of just grooming, showering, putting on like a decent shirt to go out, right? I don't know.
the standard is so very low that if you do those couple of things you mentioned, groom and get really clean, smell good, just a semi decent outfit on, dude, you're like a fucking rock star.
I know Dylan has to fight the attention away. He gets all the attention at the bar.
That's not true.
And it's because you showered. You're like the only guy in there who showered that
Like
day.
I got deodorant on. But yeah, well, I just think people had a lot more style back in all these different eras. All these different times. We want to bring back the wide collars and the unbuttoned shirt and stuff.
What are you talking about? The cargo shorts and the white New Balance tennis shoes is a great look for middle-aged men.
Hoodies, dude. If you removed hoodies, like nobody'd have anything to wear, me included.
It's true. It's true. Okay, so back to our story, Dylan. Are you finished with your rant there?
Yes, I'm going to stop interrupting you, as one of our listeners in Switzerland pointed out. I'm going to try not to do it as often.
All right, so there was a strict dress code enforced on these young women. They had to have permission to go out on dates. So life at college, even though they were given some freedom, they still had a lot of strict rules at this time. Mary graduated in 1962. She was one of 36 women in that secretarial program. So still a rather small number of women graduating at the time in this program. With a college degree, Mary landed a job as a secretary at Citizens and Southern Bank located in Atlanta, Georgia.
Hotlanta.
Hotlanta. Mary moved in with a group of other young women at 1300 University Drive. It was common for single-sex residential buildings and hotels to be available in larger cities like New York and Atlanta. For women workers in cities, there were two problems that often emerged. Women were paid far less than their male counterparts, which limited affordable housing opportunities. And it was a time when chastity, innocence, and domesticity were celebrated and expected of women. Folks were alarmed at the thought of young single women living apart from their families, alone, unsupervised, unprotected.
Can you imagine?
Not only was it practical for these young women working to room together, but it was also a moral choice, preserving dignity, purity of these future wives and mothers.
Okay. What's funny, I mean, if everyone was held to this standard, even if it was, different kind of atmosphere or environment for the man, but he was still expected to do these, I would just be like, well, that's just the way it was, you had these expectations of a man and a woman. But now the dude's just doing whatever. He's drinking 2 fingers of scotch, smoking cigarettes, going by the bar on the way home from work. He's just living his best life. And then the women have all these constraints and
Living la vida loca.
all these one-sided expectations of them.
Keep your legs closed.
Why would you try to hold women down? I don't get it, because every time I try to hold them down, I end up with charges. Hey.
Ew.
Yeah. One more dad joke. Hey, I haven't seen you since last year.
Oh, my God.
Gosh, that one got wore out
The
at
mental
work.
gymnastics.
All right.
That you had to prepare yourself for that joke. All right. So this obviously was very different world from the supervision that she'd had at home in college. So even though she's living with roommates and oftentimes these residential buildings had strict rules, it still offered her more freedom than she'd had.
Yeah.
In the past.
Well, that makes sense.
Okay, Rufus, you have to stop under there. My dog is under there.
He's not a good co-host, I must say.
So Mary was attractive, of medium height, and she had brown hair. She was quite slender. So it wasn't surprising that after only a year in Atlanta, she'd meet the man who would become her husband. After dating for a year, Mary would wed a man named Roy Little Jr. What?
That's just kind of a funny name, man.
Roy Little Jr.?
Yeah, to know that there's a Roy Little Sr.
Roy was from Jacksonville, Florida, and a graduate of the Citadel in Charleston. He was a lieutenant in the U.S. Army Reserves and a bank examiner for the state of Georgia. The couple married at Myers Park Presbyterian Church in Charlotte, then spent their honeymoon in the mountains of western North Carolina.
Oh.
They settled into an apartment in Decatur, Georgia, and by all accounts, Mary was happy and in love. The newlyweds were completely content as they began this new chapter together. 6 weeks after their wedding, Roy had gone to LaGrange for training to be an auditor for the state's banking department, so Mary was staying alone at the apartment. It was on October 14th of 1965, the day before Roy's return home, that Mary was planning a party for him. After a normal day working at the bank, Mary went to the Colonial Market where she purchased some groceries for Friday's dinner party. Right, so husband's been out of town, they're newlyweds. She's planning this return home party for him.
See?
How sweet.
That's sweet. That's something I would do.
Oh, yeah?
For you.
So after she buys the groceries for the dinner party, she goes to S&S Piccadilly Cafeteria at the Lenox Square Mall for dinner with a friend. Remember the Piccadilly Cafeteria, the mall?
I think a lot of people do remember that, and I love cafeteria food. I don't know why.
You do?
Real cafeteria food, not what they do nowadays.
This is in a Tony, Atlanta neighborhood known as Buckhead. The mall is well lit, full of people, considered to be a fairly safe place in the city, especially in 1965. After dinner, Mary and her girlfriend went browsing at Rich's department store. This was the one and only time that Mary had been out while Roy had been away. Mary's friend described her as seemingly fine. If anything, she was in high spirits, looking forward to her husband's return the next day. It was around 8 p.m. that Mary parted ways with her girlfriend.
So she's excited for her husband coming home, planning this little party and stuff, and has had a good day with her friends. And yeah, everything sounds like it's going fine.
Had dinner at the mall cafeteria.
Well, it's a
Did
big
little
deal.
shopping.
People used to go to the mall to eat.
They did. I remember my grandparents would go to the mall on Sunday after church so they could eat at the Piccadilly cafeteria.
You better believe it.
Or the Woolworth,
Ooh.
because there was a lunch counter.
Oh,
Yeah, I remember back in the day. See how old I am?
damn, you remember lunch counters and Woolworths?
Yeah, I do.
Shit, bro.
And at the local pharmacies in town as well.
Yeah, I think that was a byproduct of living in this very, very small town. I think it was quite a bit more common.
I remember
right?
2 pharmacies, like hometown small pharmacies that had lunch counters when I was a kid.
And they always made the best sandwiches and like hot dogs and stuff.
Dude, the one pharmacy is actually a block away from us back in the day. Pharmacy, Geraldine, the lady who ran it, her husband was the pharmacist. Geraldine made the best pimento cheese ever, and Geraldine made a grilled pimento cheese sandwich.
Ooh.
That was what I always got. It was my favorite. Damn, I know, right? It's pretty good shit. So on Friday, Mary failed to show up for work, which was out of character for the 25-year-old. If Mary missed work, which was never, she would definitely phone in. Mary was punctual, so the bank supervisor and coworkers found this alarming. They made multiple calls to Mary's apartment, but failed to reach her. Mary's coworker, who was also like a friend, informed their boss that they'd had dinner together the night before at the mall. So the boss phoned security at the mall, even explaining the area where Mary had mentioned parking. Mary drove a metallic pearl gray 1965 Mercury Comet,
Ooh.
which is a very cute car.
Yes.
I love Mercury Comets. However, security called back to say there was no car matching that description in the yellow parking area, which happened to be on the Lenox Road side of the mall. Finally, Roy was alerted to his wife's absence, so he headed back to Atlanta. Her boss, who was feeling anxious and impatient, drove to the mall to search the parking lot himself. It was around midday that he went to the parking lot. It didn't take long for him to spot Mary's Comet sitting in the parking area where she supposedly parked the night before. So even though security hadn't found her car, he quickly spots the vehicle.
Well, for one thing, he knows exactly what the vehicle looks like, but and for two, I mean, security's bad to do stuff like that.
Or just not go check it all.
Yeah, and then tell people they did.
Yeah. What he found in the car was concerning. Inside the vehicle was 4 bags of groceries for a meal that Mary would never prepare. There were also undergarments, including a bra, underwear, slip, girdle, and a single stocking, neatly folded on the console between the bucket seats.
Okay, that's very strange. That would be very odd to find these groceries someone obviously just got, but now it's abandoned, and then they're basically their clothes, all their underclothes.
The stocking appeared to have been cut by a knife. Mary's other clothing, purse, jewelry, and car keys were gone. Blood was speckled on the undergarments and smeared on the steering wheel, the driver's side door handle, the inside window of the passenger side, and on the front seats. Now, it was a very small amount, like what might come from like a nosebleed. A few Coke bottles and a package of Kent cigarettes, which was Mary's brand, was also found inside the car. Can you imagine this scene? You find a vehicle, your coworker, your employee, your friend, whoever it is, and you find their undergarments folded neatly in the car, and then you find these bits of blood smeared.
No.
Would you be totally freaked out?
Well, yeah, for sure.
If your friend or loved one is missing, this is absolutely the last scene you want to discover.
Well, it's no way it's not going to disturb you. And there's no way that your mind's not, I mean, it's so weird, the undergarments especially, and a little bit of smears of blood. You're instantly going to be thinking, oh my God, something bad's happened, right? And be very worried.
The car had a weird coating of red dust on the exterior, as though it had been driven on a dirt road.
Driven up a dork road.
A dork road, yeah. By Friday evening, news of Mary's disappearance was all over Atlanta. Posters with her picture and the local TV stations ran coverage. So they've got posters everywhere, TV picking up the story. Volunteers organized search parties to comb the Buckhead area, even fanning out across the city of Atlanta.
So it's become a big deal.
It was a very big deal and quick. It happened very quickly that folks were concerned. Some law enforcement officers had a sneaking suspicion the car scene was staged due to the great smearing of such a small quantity of blood.
Okay.
That's one of the first things that struck these law enforcement officers as just very odd. You've got a very minuscule amount of blood, but someone has taken great time and attention to smearing it on the clothes or the undergarments, the steering wheel, the door handle.
Almost going out of their way to make sure you see the blood, and there's really no natural way. It just seems unnatural the way it's spread around.
Absolutely, Dylan. An unidentified fingerprint was located in the blood on the steering wheel.
Nice.
Investigators on the case discovered Mary's gas card had been used twice in North Carolina on October 15th, the day following her disappearance. The first time was at an Esso gas station in Charlotte, where Mary's parents still lived. The next time it was used at an Esso gas station in Raleigh, North Carolina. When detectives questioned attendants at both gas stations, they recalled seeing a woman who had some kind of minor injury to her head with bloodstains on her legs.
Oh.
Both workers told investigators she was in the company of two unshaven, middle-aged men who seemed to be commanding her.
Oh, so it looked like she might. Well, it was weird enough it stuck out in their head, right? They see hundreds of people a day. And I see people like this sometimes. Have you ever seen anyone like, is that person okay?
Yes. They look a bit disheveled, or they seem very upset. The person they're with may be acting out of character, kind of shady, unusual, strange, suspicious, what have you.
Yeah, I guess nowadays you should just maybe take a step back and take a closer look and observe, and you may see someone reach out for help with some kind of hand signal or something, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We've heard those stories recently.
Yeah. I saw someone like that in Walmart one day, a man and a woman, and she didn't look happy, which, I mean, that happens. If a man and a woman's, might have had words. But also the way he had his hand. I think I came home and told you about this maybe. He had his hand like right there on the back of his neck. The way you walk me around in public. And he was quite a bit bigger than her. And
well, considering it's a stretch for me to even reach the back of your neck because I am a very short person.
Yeah, but you do it.
Doesn't make sense.
You take full command of me. But no, it was odd enough that I actually like doubled back and like made another pass by them. And was just like, and of course it could be my true crime mind or whatever, and there was nothing to it. But she definitely looked a bit distraught. And I started, but then I totally chickened out. I'm just going to be like, walk up and be like, do you need help? And then they're like, yeah, get the fuck away from me, man. Fuck you. So anyway.
The woman seemed to be hiding her face from the gas station employees, but she didn't ask for help. In Charlotte, the credit card was used in the early morning hours, but not again until 12 hours later in Raleigh. The time frame was odd. Raleigh is only a few hours from Charlotte, so why was there a 12-hour gap between usages?
Well, it would lead me to believe a big chunk of that time was not spent driving. Like they went somewhere and something else happened.
You think so?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's a long time, 12 hours.
Authorities thought whoever had Mary were trying to lead investigators away from Atlanta for some reason. The credit card slips were signed by Mrs. Roy H. Little Jr. in Mary's handwriting. According to Roy's mileage and the car's odometer, investigators found only 41 miles couldn't be accounted for. Like from the trip to Atlanta, Charlotte, Raleigh, and then back to Atlanta.
Oh, so that's pretty smart to take a look at it like that and see if they, did anything besides those trips. Yeah.
Another strange fact was that the license plate on Mary's Comet was one stolen from Charlotte around the time of her disappearance. Her Comet was registered in Georgia and was probably one of the reasons why mall security didn't locate her car in the first place, because it now had North Carolina plates.
Oh, well, that makes sense if they're looking for a Comet with Georgia plates and they see this Comet with North Carolina plates. So, yeah. So maybe the security's not that sucky there at the mall.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm assuming a Mercury Comet's not the most unusual car at this time, right?
Well, cars had so much flair and style back then. Yeah, probably not.
Authorities suspected Mary's car had been driven away from the mall on Thursday night, then brought back to the original parking spot later. If the car had been moved, it would have been at the same time that she was seen in North Carolina.
Yeah, it's very strange because that's a good distance, from Atlanta to Charlotte and then to Raleigh and then back to Atlanta. That's quite a distance. And that's very odd to go that far and then bring it all the way back to its original spot.
None of this made sense to investigators. The more they learned, the more Mary's disappearance seemed bizarre. Had she been abducted from a busy mall parking lot? Why would someone risk bringing her car back? Why had her undergarments been left behind? And why was there such a small amount of blood smeared inside the car?
I would think they're baffled at this point. Like they've tried. It sounds like they've tried to figure, what little bit of information they have to really track this down, going so far as going into another state, multiple other cities and towns, and interviewing people, and to put this timeline together. But yet they haven't really figured anything out, except maybe she's in the company of two other males.
Well, Dylan, guess what?
What?
This case doesn't get any more unbizarre.
Really?
It doesn't get less bizarre.
It's going to get bizarrer?
It's a very strange
Oh my
case.
God.
That's why it really piqued my interest. I've wanted to cover these cases, actually, for a while, because it's just so strange. It's like nothing we've covered before.
Okay.
When investigators spoke to Mary's friends, they learned in the days before her disappearance, she had expressed being uncomfortable alone in her apartment. Coworkers also mentioned that Mary had gotten several phone calls at work, which had upset the woman. She never talked about who might have been calling her or why. However, one witness came forward with some information that Mary ended one of the calls by saying, quote, "I'm a married woman now."
That's how I end all my calls.
By saying I'm a married woman now?
Yeah. Hushed.
I'm a wife.
I'm somebody's wife.
I'm a wife and mother. Are you a wife and mother, Dylan?
Yes.
Say it.
Yes, I'm a wife and a mother.
Now?
How dare you?
Hey.
You would be the sleaze on the other end of the line.
Hey there.
Oh my God, listen at you.
Hey there, honey pants.
Honey pants. You son of a bitch. Oh my God.
Okay, sugar tits.
See, you make such a great obscene phone caller.
Yeah, okay. On October 16th, phone calls were made to area hospitals, but there was no sign of Mary. And for some of our younger listeners out there, you've probably heard us talk about this before, pre-cell phone. When you were missing a loved one, couldn't track them down, you were concerned, you called the area hospitals.
Yep. Hospital, jails, and police.
Is that what you did,
Or was it
Dylan?
hospital, jails, morgue?
Yeah, that's about it.
Check at those three places first.
So in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, Mary had received flowers from a secret admirer, Dylan. What?
Gosh, there's so many things I want to talk about on the side, but I'm trying to stick with the story. This is a weird story.
What do you want to talk about?
Have you ever had a secret admirer? Let's talk about it at the end.
No, not really.
Me neither.
I'm
Would
Sad.
would you like to have a secret admirer, or would you instantly go into, okay, who the fuck's tracking me and stalking me, and I need to know who the hell they are?
I don't know. It depends. Are they going to leave me like a severed hand in a box? Because that would be romantic.
I was gonna say, then you'd be like, oh my God, this is my type of guy.
The florist was fairly close to the apartment the Littles shared. None of this had a clear connection, but it gave investigators something to go on. Questions swirled, and then some other clues began surfacing that made investigators wonder, was Mary alive?
Ooh.
The Shotwells had not seen nor heard from Mary, though evidence suggested she'd been in Charlotte. So she hadn't contacted her parents when she'd been in town.
Which I'm going to assume is odd.
No one had seen her while she was in Charlotte. Not that Charlotte's a tiny town, but at this time, she was probably more likely to run into someone she knew
Right.
than maybe in today's busy city.
Well, I'm going to assume anytime she's in the area of where her parents and likely friends and other family live, possibly, she's going to go visit someone. You wouldn't just come there and not go see anybody, right?
Again, investigators wondered why kidnappers would take a woman from Atlanta all the way to her hometown where someone might recognize her. Also, the car, if it was taken and brought back, suggested there were at least 3 perpetrators. 2 with Mary, as the witnesses had described, and a third driving Mary's car.
Well, that's true.
So this is kind of an elaborate plan if there are actually 3 people involved.
Right.
What?
I'm just randomly going numb over here. Sorry.
You're just going numb.
Is that when you get old?
Yeah. Roy Little Jr. was not well liked by Mary's friends, and he aroused suspicion when he refused to take a polygraph twice.
Well, I mean, he could have had his reasons. Maybe he was scared. But, and that's the only good part, good use for a polygraph, honestly, is to bluff people and to just the very fact of whether your willingness to take it or not take it oftentimes says something about you as far as investigators are concerned, I think.
Law enforcement just didn't feel like Roy appeared as a husband should when his wife is missing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, everybody has that stereotypical idea of how someone should react in these situations.
He seemed more concerned about when the car might be turned over from the state's crime lab.
That's a red flag.
On October 17th, Little told a detective that he'd received a phone call from a man named Calvin Allen who was praying for him. This random person calls, says, "Hi, my name's Calvin Allen. I want to express my sympathies for your loss, and I'll be praying for you."
Okay.
But Roy Little had no idea who Calvin Allen was. In the days after his wife's disappearance, Roy purchased 2 season tickets for the Atlanta Falcons' 1966 season.
Nice.
He also contacted Rich's department store to say he was not responsible for any charges his wife might have incurred before her disappearance.
This is fairly strange behavior. I'm going to give him a pass on the season tickets because he probably had a small window to get those. And no, I'm being serious. If he's like a seasonal season ticket holder fan, he could have done that to just out of pure habit.
Right. I mean, he may have had plans
Well, I'm
on
saying,
this date I'm buying. I mean, that
Yeah.
may not be so odd, but that coupled with the fact that
well, he's
he's
more
more concerned about the car. Hey,
Right.
I'm not going to pay any bill my wife might have ran up before she went missing. I mean,
Yeah.
those are very odd details.
all that together is odd to me.
Detectives interviewed Mary's former coworker and roommate, who said Mary was known to stay out all night before she got married. The Atlanta Police Department made a media request for folks living in the Atlanta area to check their property for any personal belongings that might be Mary's and for a body. So, hey, you might want to go check your outbuildings,
That's
ditches.
a fairly a pretty bold request from investigators, I think, right? I mean, in this day and age, if they were like, "Hey, everybody in the area,
Make sure you ain't got no bodies in your backyard."
if you don't mind going checking down there by the fire pit, that might not be a tarp, right? That might be a damned old body, and we'd appreciate if you go check so we don't have to burn gas. Come down there and look, 'cause we can't look everywhere."
Excuse me, my kids found a body in their treehouse. We don't know how it got there.
We don't know how it got there.
When Roy was interviewed again, he said just before Mary's disappearance, they had ran into a man while at a Chattanooga hotel that had once worked with Mary at the bank. He had given them the cold shoulder, which Mary thought was due to the fact that he'd been fired, though she didn't go into great detail about what the problem might have been. So that was just kind of a weird piece of information he offered up.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess at this point, if your spouse is missing, you're probably grasping at straws, like anything, any information that you could offer up, maybe. But
Well,
it
yeah.
just seemed like a very odd detail to share.
Well, yeah, or you could be racking your brain, like you said, for anybody who might want to harm your loved one, I guess.
Roy also received a phone call about a ransom. The caller demanded $20,000 be brought to a bridge in the Pisgah National Forest in western North Carolina. However, when law enforcement went to the site, there was no one around, and it was determined to be a hoax.
Well, they could have already taken the money.
Well, no, they didn't leave any money there.
Oh,
I mean, it
wait.
was like a big
They
setup.
called them and said
Well, yeah,
they
some
offered up a ransom.
some random
Okay.
person called Roy, bring us this 20 grand. We'll bring you Mary.
And that, I don't get these people who, just for kicks, do things like that. That, gives families false hope. It wastes resources. It clogs up the system. It confuses investigators.
It's just plain meanness.
It's very mean. And I think it's just a really shitty thing to do. And I just don't understand, for that little bit of a ha-ha. There probably somebody was somewhere watching, the investigators come there or something. Getting, their rocks off, right?
Shitbirds.
That's a fucking shitbird move. You're right.
It is a shitbird move. A woman who'd been shopping at Lenox Square Mall on the night of Mary's disappearance claimed a man approached her in the parking lot as she was getting into her car. He told her she had a flat tire, but she quickly locked the door before he could open it. When she drove away from him, the woman stopped at a gas station down the road where she learned she didn't have a flat tire at all.
Well, that's scary.
This was shortly before 8 p.m., around the time Mary would have been saying her goodbyes at the mall. However, this information went nowhere, and no tire guy was ever located. Detectives received a tip from an unknown caller who said Mary's body was in a vacant lot between Jamestown Shopping Center and the Little Diner near College Park. This caller claimed that her foot was sticking up from a shallow grave. He said a 40-year-old man who frequented a place called the Smokehouse on Ivy Street was responsible for the murder. When investigators were dispatched to the empty lot, they found nothing. It was another hoax call.
Damn it, man.
It was on October 27th that detectives spoke with the owner of Hall's Florist, who confirmed 5 red roses were sent to Mary the week she disappeared. The invoice for the flowers was lost, and the roses had been delivered by a florist driver. The clerk could only recall the person who bought the roses had been a white male, but provided no other information. The next day, a note was found at the CNS branch, which was the bank where she had been employed, at the Buckhead branch, saying, quote, suggest you look for the missing woman in Dahlonega. I know that's not pronounced correctly, and I'm going to have people be like, what the fuck?
It's Delagana.
Is it Dahlonega?
I don't know. Is that a town?
I guess.
Yeah, well, no offense to anyone from Dahlonega.
Dahlonega or Dahlonega or... Yeah, sorry, guys.
We apologize.
I'm always butchering the town. That we look for this missing woman in Dahlonega.
I'm sure it's Delagana.
Double-onia, whatever. So that evening around 9 p.m., a cook at the Royal Castle restaurant on Beaufort Highway reported to police a woman he believed was Mary came into the place with a tall, stocky-built white man who looked like he was maybe 30. The pair stayed for 30 minutes, during which they argued and then left. I mean, a series of peculiar and horrifying tips were pouring in.
Yeah, and
People seeing Mary here, there, everywhere.
And that's the two sides of the coin when the investigators do reach out to the public. Sometimes it breaks the case wide open, or helps the case, and oftentimes you also get a shitload of tips.
It just wastes resources.
People think they saw such and such, or they think they remembered this, or you get a lot of revenge calls. People trying to implicate someone they don't like for whatever reason. And yeah, it's a lot.
Another tip suggested Mary's body was in a rock quarry in Whites, Georgia. One caller claimed her husband admitted to butchering Mary on a picnic table in Beaufort. Another woman said an anonymous call came into her home from a man. He claimed he had murdered 11 women, then proceeded to make vulgar sexual comments. When she told him she was going to hang up, he warned, quote, same thing will happen to you as Ms. Little.
Oh my gosh.
So some pervert calling women jerking off, saying dirty things, and then threatening her. You will let me jack off on the phone because I've killed 11 women. I mean, that's basically what this person was.
Okay, I'll be like, hurry up and finish. But this is a party line, bro. My aunt wants you to talk to somebody.
Another tipster claimed to see Mary at a Jacksonville, Florida lawyer's office in the company of some older women. He alleged that Mary had only married Roy Little to get back at her former lover, a truck driver. I love how these people just know Mary's business, right?
Yeah, I know.
It was around a week after Mary's disappearance that the crime lab reported its opinion that Mary's clothing appeared to be neatly folded, not shoved on the console. The bra showed signs of being forcibly removed, so I'm imagining maybe like a strap was kind of stretched.
Or one of the clasps bent.
Yeah, like there was some reason it appeared as though there had been a struggle to get this bra off.
You know, I could take a bra off with one hand.
You can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just enjoy not having a bra on.
I know.
So there's that.
That's why I've never been able to share this talent with you.
It's true. But I've seen you take your own bra off, and you do that pretty quickly.
I do it with one hand as well.
I know.
Yes.
It's the underwire.
It is the underwire.
Get you. You're so stupid. And the blood appeared to have been put on the clothing after it was folded. The blood smear seemed deliberate to these forensic investigators. Which, I mean, we all know in the 60s forensics, weren't that solid. But it was just obvious to them that someone's folded these clothes up neatly, then smeared the blood.
Oh, okay.
Because if you unfolded the clothes, the blood was only in the visible...
Or on the top layer,
right.
Not smeared, not making contact with the other pieces of the garment. Yeah, like the report's like, well, it's official. The clothes was folded.
There's this, yeah.
But I could just imagine a bunch of men with glasses and like just smoking constantly, ashtrays everywhere, including the hospitals and church or whatever, and just, going over this case. A very smoky room with that one light in the center, that hooded light. Can you imagine this?
And that's the conclusion?
And that's the conclusion.
Okay.
The clothes were folded, not crammed.
Okay. Well, almost a year after Mary's disappearance, an inmate serving a life sentence on a murder conviction named Larry Stengel asked to speak to investigators who were working on Mary's case. He told detectives that before his arrest, he and 2 or 3 other men had committed several burglaries in the College Park area. After a night at the bar, one of the men, Jerry Mason, told him Mary's body was buried near a construction site at the Atlanta airport. Now, according to Stengel, Mason pulled out a CNS bank charge card with Mary's name on it, confessing he had paid someone to kidnap the woman. Investigators contacted the Atlanta airport regarding runway 33, where Mary's body was allegedly buried. There was a fresh hole with dirt covering it at the time. However, they would need FAA clearance to dig up the site.
Well, yeah.
On October 12th, the guy, what's his name, Stengel, he's interviewed again, this time by the FBI, but he refuses to sign a statement when the FBI interviews him. He tells the FBI a very different version of the story, saying he accompanied Jerry Mason and another man to the mall on October 14th of 1965 to see a James Bond movie. Mason left after the movie, but told Stengel he'd return soon. When he came back, he was carrying a shopping bag and had some blood on the sleeve of his shirt. He told Stengel he needed to meet someone in Mount Holly, North Carolina around 9 p.m. A week later, on October 17th, he reappeared with $5,000 cash, telling Stengel he earned it by kidnapping a woman. He showed him the credit card with her name on it and said she wasn't dead. 3 weeks later, Stengel claimed Mason and another man showed up at his house, asking him to go to Mount Holly with them.
Yeah, I don't think so, guys.
When they arrive at a house in the woods in Mount Holly, North Carolina, there's a woman tied up. So they arrive at this sort of house in the woods, cabin, very remote area.
Oh, my God.
Woman tied up. She has bruises on her neck, arms, forehead, jaw, and cheek. She had a white bandage over her right eye. 3 days later, the trio headed back to Atlanta with the woman. The man in the back seat with this woman stabbed her just randomly
Okay.
in the car trip. The FBI discovered the man in question worked for the Mount Holly Water Department. And on the day Mary went missing, he had worked 9 hours and again on Friday, making it impossible for him to be in Atlanta. So they basically realized this guy Stengel, I mean, he's changed his story. He's giving up information, details that just don't check out.
Yeah, I mean that's quite a story he's telling investigators, and also you got to think to yourself, like if it's true, then who's financing this kidnapping? Why? I mean,
What's the motive?
for just one person involved to have $5,000 at least. You know, there's got to be more money. That's a significant amount of money back in the '60s. Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
After this, Mary's case goes cold. And this is another odd twist. Because I told you, Dylan, it's just going to get stranger and stranger.
Well, it sounds like investigators have tried as hard as they can to figure this out and just haven't had any luck.
In 1965, a woman named Diane Shields begins working at C&S Bank, sitting at Mary's former desk.
Okay.
So she's replacing Mary, who's gone missing. Sitting at Mary's desk is the new Mary at work.
Okay.
She's from Gunnersville, Alabama. The woman's roommate moved out in November, so she was living alone in an apartment on Walker Avenue. One evening, a man showed up at Diane's door selling books. She refused to open the door. He tells her he knows her roommate has moved out and that she lives there alone. Diane calls the police, but by the time they show up, the man is gone.
Well, that's creepy as hell.
In June of 1966, this is about a year after she's began working at the bank, Diane moves into a new apartment with some roommates. She had been dating a coworker at C&S Bank. When that relationship didn't work out, Diane reportedly took sleeping pills in an apparent suicide attempt. Diane told coworkers at C&S that she was conducting her own investigation into Mary's disappearance, which they thought was very odd.
Well, yeah. And this is all the girl who replaced Mary at the bank.
Yes.
Okay.
It gets weirder, Dylan.
Jeez
Stick with
Louise.
me, okay? There's a lot to unpack here. The story is very, very strange. By October, Diane quit her job at the bank, seemingly out of nowhere. She started working at Associated Industries of Georgia. On the 26th of October, she gets a delivery of 5 red roses, but claims she didn't know who the person was on the card. Now remember, Mary had gotten a delivery of 5 red roses the week she disappeared.
Oh my God, is she
and
doing?
had a secret admirer.
Yep.
She alerts police, who finally tracked down the sender. And it was just a former employee at C&S who'd been let go for sexual harassment. He told police that he had sent the flowers to Diane because he had just been thinking about her.
Oh, so it's some horny, creepy, gross guy.
Some horny, creepy, gross guy. Yeah. Diane began dating a man named Timothy Ontley, who worked for an insurance company. She also received 2 strange phone calls from a man who claimed to be a postal worker with a registered letter for her. He tried to get her to meet in person to pick up this letter. And she was like, that doesn't sound right to me. Called the post office. They're like, yeah, first of all, we don't have a postal worker, like, you know, a male postal worker in that area. He wouldn't be calling you. Like, this is all very strange.
Yeah, he calls you at like 1:30 in the morning, talking about he's got a package for you.
Yeah, like, the post
Yeah.
office is like, no, don't go meet this person. This is very sketchy, right? It was on December 2nd that Diane called in sick to work. She told her boyfriend that she had to visit a friend in College Park, but wouldn't give him the name of this friend. New Year's of that year, Tommy proposes to Diane. And after this, Diane moves in with her older sister because she had some sort of issue with her roommate at the time over this engagement, which will come out later. So let's keep that in mind. Friday, May 19th of 1967, the day seemed normal for Diane. Her sister went to work at 8 a.m. Diane left soon after to head to AIG, where she was working. Tommy had a 4 p.m. appointment, so he called her to say he would stop by and visit around 5 p.m. Diane left for work a few minutes after 5 p.m., again had a normal day, left typical time, pulled out of the parking lot. Witnesses saw her heading west on Hunter Avenue. Tommy attempted to call Diane 3 different times but couldn't reach her. Sandra, Diane's sister, told him that she hadn't arrived home from work yet, and it was now about 8 p.m. So concerned, Tommy drove to the AIG parking lot, but he did not see his fiance's car. Sometime between 7:30 and 8:30 p.m., a man named Jack Mullinax spotted Diane's car with 2 men inside. A woman at East Point Cleaners saw Diane's car parked sometime around 9 p.m. in the parking lot. Tommy phoned area hospitals looking for Diane, but had no luck. It was after midnight that Tommy nor her sister Sandra had heard from Diane. So he starts calling some of her coworkers, former coworkers from the bank, folks from AIG. Like, he's just trying everything to track down his fiance at this point. One of the coworkers reported seeing Diane around 1:30 a.m. with her former roommate Judy at a Waffle House on Central Avenue. By 2 a.m., Tommy and Sandra report her missing to police. Like, they've driven around, they've exhausted all information, leads.
They've called everybody they can think of. They've
Can't find her.
racked their brain, and wow, now Diane's missing?
And this roommate, Judy, the former roommate, is the one that had the problem with this engagement for some reason, was also friends with Mary, and seemingly had problems with Mary's engagement and marriage to Roy.
What is this woman's problem?
I don't know, but it's very odd.
You the engagement police?
Yeah,
Yeah, don't tell me how to be engaged.
the jealous woman who can't stand to see her friends happy.
I'll engage any way I damn well like.
Around 2:30 a.m., officers patrolling East Point Cleaners and Laundry parking lot find a 1963 blue Chevy with keys in the ignition, just parked in this lot. They notice a blood trail from the trunk about 8 feet across the parking lot. So, of course, they're concerned. They're doing their typical patrol. This car is parked at this dry cleaners overnight, which is odd. Not the kind of place where people parked overnight.
Well, yeah, they patrol through there every shift, so they know what belongs there and what doesn't.
So when they go check, they find this huge blood trail streaking across the parking lot.
There's blood over here.
When they open the trunk, they find Diane Shields. She is lying face up on her back. She's shoved between a spare tire and some cardboard boxes. She has a cloth shoved into her mouth, which is bloody. She's fully dressed. The medical examiner determined she died about 4 hours earlier from strangulation, either from a phone wire or perhaps like a Venetian blind cord. It had been some very thin...
So strangulation by ligature.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some very small, thin wire or cord.
Man, what a gruesome discovery.
She had been subjected to a beating. Her left ear was severely torn. A paper towel and headscarf had been shoved into her mouth. The car was cool to the touch, indicating it had not been driven for some hours. And they did find some fingerprints in the car. Police interview a former employee named Clarence Crumbly, who told them he thought the women's cases were connected and somehow tied to the personnel department at C&S Bank.
Well, I mean, what are the odds that these two women who work this same position in this exact, same bank, something foul, random violence would have happened to them? It's very weird, very weird.
He said he felt like he was in danger at the bank, and he had some juicy tea about the bank, Dylan.
Ooh.
It was loaned to the max.
Ah, I see. So what they've done is, I'm not going to go into detail, but I was actually listening to a podcast about Federal Reserves and, how it all works. And so they've loaned out everything basically that people have deposited. And I think this may be before banks actually started lending each other money to cover these deposits. Banks will actually lend each other huge sums of money overnight just so they can clear their books for the day. Isn't that messed up?
Yeah.
Okay.
When he told Judy, the coworker, remember, friends with Diane, friends with missing Mary, about the issues, these discrepancies, these financial findings, he was fired.
Ah.
So he reported it to Judy, or like told her what he'd found, and then was immediately fired.
So basically, this bank's insolvent. If everybody, maybe that's the right word. If everyone was, they could not cover their what. If everybody came on to get their money from the bank, they just couldn't cover it, right? Because they've loaned out everything and it's coming in too slowly to cover everyone else's money.
And it's my understanding, and I could be confused, but I had written this down in my notes, so I'm assuming that I had it right, is this guy Crumbly is the one they had bumped into in Chattanooga that Mary's like, oh yeah, he'd been fired, but didn't go into detail about why. But he's telling police, well, this is why I got fired.
Oh, so he told on the bank, a whistleblower of sorts, and then he was fired.
So here's his story as follows. Are you ready?
I guess.
He says around noon on June the 2nd, the Mitchell Street C&S Bank Vice President Herman Zimmerman was reported missing by his wife. 24 hours later, Zimmerman calls to say he's okay and that he's going to be home later. Jack Mullinex, the man who had said he had seen Diane with two men, also an employee at the bank, said that he had been followed on June the 9th, and at 5 p.m., a man forced him at gunpoint to drive to Henry County, where he was shot.
Damn.
He says it's the same man who was in Diane's car the night she was killed. Now, he later recants the story, saying he had shot himself due to some debt, but a lot of people think he was threatened and recanted his story.
He shot himself due to some debt?
That's what he later said, yeah.
I mean, that happens all the time, right?
Right. So, but people thought this was really strange and think that he was threatened by these persons or person possibly responsible for kidnapping this bank manager and
What is up with this
taking
bank?
out these two women.
So, yeah, it's like I saw my credit to debt ratio. God damn it. Get my shotgun.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling good about my debt.
Okay, Lightning Hopkins, bring me my shotgun. I've got a negative credit score.
So, what is going on with this bank and these people?
In the years after Mary vanished, her case file also vanished. Mary's mother asked law enforcement to please stop investigating the case about 2 years after her disappearance.
That's weird.
Which people thought was strange.
I mean, wouldn't you always want to know, no matter if it's painful or not, you'd want to know the truth and what happened, and if it's someone, whoever hurt your loved one, you want justice, all that stuff.
Right. So again, there's a lot of...
I don't know.
There's a lot involved in the story of these two women that just doesn't add up or makes no sense or is just very strange and confusing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I still can't get past the fact that her replacement ended up murdered as well at this bank.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know if Mary was murdered. We don't know what happened to Mary.
I'm sorry.
She's just classified as a missing person. But
You're right.
Diane definitely murdered.
Well, and something seemingly definitely happened to Mary, whether or not she was murdered. It sounds like, if you believe any of these eyewitness accounts or what the investigators discovered about her little trip from Atlanta to Charlotte to Raleigh, it didn't sound like it was going good for Mary or that she wanted to be part of that. So, and she was never seen, never heard from again, correct?
Yes.
So something, but just that blows my mind. That just makes no sense to me.
There are theories, Dylan.
They discovered some wrongdoings at the bank as secretaries?
Some police officers believe that Mary had faked her own kidnapping.
Okay.
Right? A rumor circulated that Mary had found some illegal activities going on at C&S Bank, which she reported to the FBI. There were whispers that Mary had been harassed and was killed over that information she uncovered. It seems odd that she bought groceries before having dinner, and her boss found the car when security didn't, and it's two women from the same bank. So these are all very strange questions, right?
Ah, yeah. Oh, wow. In hindsight, it all, and then you have co-workers,
Well,
giving
some
statements.
people think she may not have even gone to the mall for dinner and that the friend was lying.
Well, yeah, and maybe she just needed some groceries for the next day or something. I mean, that's not like a smoking gun for me. I mean, who you can buy groceries after you ate dinner, right?
Well, before you eat dinner, are
Or
you going to
before you
leave
eat
them in the
dinner.
car and go shop and all that?
Oh, sorry. No, I mean, depends on what you're buying, I guess, if it's dry goods or non-perishable, but I guess that's a little weird.
Well, some people think she never went to the mall, that that was fabricated, that the friend who was also employed at the bank was in on this.
Well, yeah, now that I think back, now that we have this dark arts bank situation going on, yeah, you had multiple coworkers giving statements about seeing her here, critical statements, and then her boss obviously being involved in finding her car and everything early on. So yeah, I guess that's pretty weird.
Some of Mary's friends believed Roy, her husband, had been involved,
Okay.
which, I mean, he did display some unusual behaviors.
Yeah, acting like he really didn't care and was concerned about other things besides his wife.
Yep.
Okay.
Others suggest that Judy Brownlee, Diane's former roommate and Mary's friend slash coworker, was somehow involved, as she had thrown a fit when both women got engaged, and she was reportedly very jealous of the attention both women received from men at the bank.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what her deal is, but that seems to way extreme to, she might be a biddy, she might be in people's business or just a old sourpuss, but to kill or make disappear two different women?
Now, I tried to find details about the friend she had had dinner with at the mall, and I'm not 100% sure, but some research has suggested it was Judy.
No.
Other research suggests it was like a different friend. But if it is Judy who
Well,
met Mary at the mall, and then we have these other issues, it seems. She also, met up with Diane, whatever. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, that's a strange connection between the two, Mary and Diane.
Because Diane and Judy supposedly having Waffle House at like 1 a.m. before she
Yeah.
was dead.
Yeah, I like Waffle House.
It's all very weird, right?
Yeah, my head's swimming.
In 2003, Jerry Mason, the man that Larry Stingle had accused of kidnapping Mary, was convicted on charges of murdering 2 cops in California back in 1957. He died in prison in 2017. Gerald Mason is a whole other podcast episode. I mean, this guy is a known rapist, murderer.
Oh.
Yeah.
So the other guy was obviously, if it's true that he killed the cops, capable of violence, leading up to murder or whatever happened in that situation. And this other guy is just a monster, basically, right?
Yeah, Jerry Mason was just a total monster, rapist, murderer, shot these cops, and he is the one Stingle pointed the finger at. He claimed he was given $5,000 to kidnap this woman. Blah, blah, blah.
That's a lot of money.
A team of former investigators got together in 2017 to solve Mary's case. The group consisted of retired detectives, prosecutors, and criminal profilers. They have some emails sent by the alleged killer to law enforcement. The emails were reviewed by renowned statement analyst Peter Hyatt and his team of 50 experts. The person who wrote the email was determined to have knowledge of who murdered Diane. They believe the killer is a man acquainted with Diane Shields who had a crush that turned into a deadly obsession.
I guess at this point we just simply don't know.
Well, they're still digging into both cases, and they are confident they will be able to crack both cases.
Really?
Yeah.
So I guess there's a whole lot of well, you said
Well, they're connecting the dots. They have these emails allegedly written by this killer person who was involved in the Diane Shields murder. And though, it's maybe not 100% provable in court, they are confident this person, they think they know who did it.
Well, and Mary's case file disappeared. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It just vanished.
that sucks as far as them doing the cold case work. That would probably be very helpful to have that entire case file. But again, that's of course, shit happens in evidence lockers and small police, or I guess it might not have been small police department. But as time passes, they clear things out, clean records out, flip things around. But it's still, given all the other weirdness in this case, the fact that her case file's gone strikes me as very odd, right? So, okay.
Well, if there were rich, powerful people involved in the city of Atlanta, these bankers,
Well, see, that's the thing.
who knows, Dylan, a case file could easily just walk away.
Oh, that's the thing. The connection to the bank and the possible wrongdoings of the bank, and someone in Mary's position as a secretary. I think nowadays
In a personnel office?
yes,
I mean, because we don't know exactly what she was doing, like what kind of work she was doing. But it seems that she did have access to maybe some classified sort of information or.
Well, yeah. I mean, it seems like kind of a generic term we throw out as secretary, and people I think have a cliche stereotype like in their mind of what a secretary does. But what they're doing is they're running the front end. They're basically your office manager, depending on how many people and all that, and they know everything. They know the internal workings. They know what you're working on.
They're often like the eyes and ears of the company.
They know who you're, connected to. They know who you're having meetings and conversations with. I mean, they know where to dig. They know where all the records are. They, I mean, in that position, you could figure out a lot of stuff if you were so inclined, or you might accidentally stumble upon some very big things. And when you put a lot of money into any situation, or the possibility of losing money or reputation, that could definitely be motive for murder.
Well, all of these theories, one theory is that Mary was working with the FBI. Perhaps she was put into some sort of witness protection program, and that could be why her parents, specifically her mom, was like, stop looking for my daughter after only 2 years.
Well, yeah, I forgot to comment on
and
that.
like didn't want the police to further investigate.
There's
which is very strange. Or maybe it was just a very heartbroken woman who didn't want to relive that pain for the rest of her life.
Well, you
the
would
constant interviews and contact with police. I mean, who knows? We can't know what she was thinking.
You would think if she went into witness protection, I know there's protocols to keep it, anyone from figuring out exactly where they go and all that. But you think through some back channel or some way, the FBI would come back around and say to investigators, hey, it's okay. Right? No matter, they don't have to say anything else. They don't tell them where they're at. But, this person, you should stop looking and wasting resources looking for this person if she actually went into witness protection.
Or maybe you just steal the case file.
Yeah. Damn it, Mulder.
It's very strange. You have these two women. There's all these similarities, seeming like connections, both work in the same office, friends with the same people, having some of the same issues with the same people, both access to this banking information. Seems like there could have been something shady happening at work. You've got the secret admirer, someone sending 5 roses to these women.
Ooh.
Those things are very odd, but then it's different because, obviously Diane was found in the trunk of her car.
Right.
And Mary's never been found.
No, and there was a, good opportunity for Mary to be found in her car in that mall parking lot, kind of a similar situation. But no, it's very odd.
It's
and
a
honestly,
baffling case.
Now that you've brought my attention to this case, I would like to keep track of it and see if this cold case team or these retired investigators ever come up with more information on this, because this is pretty fascinating from a true crime aspect.
It is. It's actually considered, the Mary Shotwell case is considered to be one of the most famous in Atlanta, one of the most well-known cases, mystery. A lot of folks in Atlanta know the story. It's kind of like a local urban legend, if you will. But it's really fascinating. And when I learned of this case, I mean, I've had it on our list for some time. I wanted to cover it because it's so strange. And not only Mary's case, but then when you throw in Diane's murder as well.
Well, that takes it to a whole nother level.
You know, and I really didn't want to like clip Diane's story onto the end as sort of like a
side
note to Mary's story, because I believe both women deserve equal attention. It's so strange.
Gosh, I guess we may never know the truth, but who knows? Maybe we'll get lucky and the investigators will come up with some more information.
Well, I thought it was a great case to start our brand new year, Dylan.
Oh, that's right. We're back, baby.
That's right. 3 years of podcasting. Are you ready for 3 more?
2022. I am ready for 3 more. We're back. We're feeling great. We're well rested. I've showered. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Addressed some toenail fungus issue on one of my big toes. Feeling really good about life right now.
Gross.
So, here we are. I'm just going to keep saying gross things. Try to keep from sidetracking Heather away from her great stories too much. And these are my resolutions for 2022.
They are.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love you.
My resolution, Dylan, we're going to continue to deliver the best possible stories for our listeners.
Gosh, we love the listeners.
We cover these true crime cases, but I hope that we're able to bring just a little bit of information that perhaps they haven't heard before.
You do it every week.
Different side of the story.
Yes.
Right?
So let's wrap this thing up for now. And I can't wait for our Mountain Murders Offbeat coming up later this week.
Yeah, we'll have an offbeat on Wednesday. We're going to resume our regular scheduling with Sunday True Crime and Wednesday Offbeat. If you would like more content, feel free to join us at patreon.com/Mountain Murders Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And you can always drop us an email, mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com, if you would like to let us know how we're doing, what you think about the show. And they can also hit subscribe and leave us what, Dylan?
A 5-star review on any podcast player you're using. And because we love those reviews, and it really helps keep the show in the charts.
Thanks, dude. Hope you guys have a great week. Happy New Year.